Did you know that over 73% of adults admit to overthinking daily? It's not just an occasional problem, it's a silent epidemic that can destroy your peace of mind, your productivity, and even your relationships. For years, I was caught in an endless loop of overanalyzing every decision, doubting every choice, and rethinking every conversation. It wasn't until I reached my breaking point that I realized how much overthinking was holding me back. In this video, I'll share my personal journey of overcoming overthinking, the transformative techniques I used, and how you can take back control of your mind starting today. Let's dive in. Overthinking is like quicksand for your mind. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. For me, it started small, questioning whether I'd worded an email correctly or replaying conversations in my head. But before long, it spiraled into sleepless nights, paralyzing indecision, and constant self-doubt. I wasn't just overthinking, I was overanalyzing every aspect of my life. So, what changed? I'll break it down into 6 powerful steps that helped me transform my life. Starting with the first major realization: overthinking is not productive. Step 1. Recognizing the problem. The first step to stopping overthinking is acknowledging that it's a problem. For the longest time, I convinced myself that overthinking meant I was being thorough or cautious. In reality, it was draining my energy and robbing me of opportunities. I realized that most of my thoughts were repetitive, and instead of finding solutions, I was stuck in a cycle of worrying. I began keeping track of how often I got stuck in my head. Journaling became my go-to method for noticing patterns. Every time I caught myself spiraling, I wrote down what I was overthinking and how it made me feel. This awareness was the wake-up call I needed to start changing my habits. Step 2. Challenging my thoughts. Once I recognized the problem, I started questioning the validity of my thoughts. Not everything I worried about was true or even realistic. For instance, I often replayed conversations, assuming I'd said something wrong or offended someone. But when I asked myself, what evidence do I have for this? The answer was almost always none. I adopted a mantra: not every thought deserves my attention. This simple phrase became a game changer. I learned to let go of baseless fears and focus only on what mattered. Step 3. Setting boundaries for thinking time. One of the most surprising techniques I discovered was scheduling my overthinking. Instead of letting my thoughts run wild throughout the day, I set aside a specific time, just 10 minutes in the evening, to worry or overanalyze. If a stressful thought popped up earlier, I'd tell myself, save it for your overthinking session. This trick did 2 things. It stopped my thoughts from hijacking my entire day, and it often made my worries feel less urgent. By the time my worry session arrived, most of the things I'd been stressing about no longer seemed worth the energy. Step 4. Embracing imperfection. Overthinking often comes from a fear of making mistakes. For years, I was terrified of failure. I felt like every decision had to be perfect, and every outcome had to go according to plan. But here's the truth: perfection doesn't exist. I started giving myself permission to make mistakes. Whether it was sending an imperfect email, trying something new, or making a decision without overanalyzing every detail, I reminded myself that mistakes are part of growth. This mindset shift took time, but it freed me from the impossible standards I'd set for myself. Step 5. Practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness became my anchor in moments of mental chaos. Whenever I felt my thoughts spiraling, I turned to grounding exercises. One of my favorites is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Name 5 things you can see. Name 4 things you can touch. Name 3 things you can hear. Name 2 things you can smell. Name 1 thing you can taste. This simple exercise pulled me out of my head and into the present moment. It reminded me that most of my worries weren't rooted in reality, they were just stories my mind was telling me. Step 6. Taking action, no matter how small. One of the biggest lessons I learned was that action is the antidote to overthinking. The longer you wait to make a decision or take a step forward, the more time you give your mind to create doubts. Even small actions like sending a quick text or jotting down a plan can break the cycle of indecision. I started challenging myself to make decisions within a set time frame. For example, if I couldn't decide what to eat for dinner, I'd give myself 30 seconds to choose. The more I practiced this, the more confident I became in my ability to make choices without second-guessing myself. The transformation? Overcoming overthinking didn't happen overnight, but these strategies transformed my mindset and my life. I went from feeling stuck and overwhelmed to feeling empowered and focused. Today, I approach decisions with clarity and confidence, and I've learned to trust myself in a way I never thought possible. If you're struggling with overthinking, know that you're not alone, and it is possible to change. Start by recognizing your patterns, challenging your thoughts, and taking small steps toward action. And if you're looking for more tools to take control of your mindset and live a more intentional life, check out my Self Care Ebook. It's packed with actionable strategies to help you reduce stress, build confidence, and create a life you love. Remember, life is too short to spend it trapped in your head. Take the first step today and start living fully.